And then when Cleo and I was living in Rigby, well, the father that raised me passed away, and their daughter Rosella passed away, and I went down to Dad's services, and Cleo took me down, and we went down, and Daddy's hair was white when I knew him, and it seemed like that it got real dark. His hair was dark black, almost black then, and he had his wave in his hair, and he looked so wonderful and beautiful in these temple clothes. And I told Mother, I said, "Oh, Mom," I said, "don't feel bad." I said, "Daddy needed to go to his heavenly home." I said he wasn't happy how things was here because he got awful sick, and I said he needed to be to his heavenly home, and she said, "I know, dear," but she said, "I'm going to miss him." And I said, "Well, if you ever need me, I'll be there." Well, we were living in Rigby, Idaho, and Mom went to live with Ethel and Walt Farmer. That was her daughter and son-in-law. And Ethel called us and said that Mom wasn't feeling good, or she wrote to me. So every Friday night, Cleo would put me on the bus, and I'd ride to Salt Lake, and Max would pick me up and take me out to Tooele. And Ethel said Mom got to asking her, "Well, is this the day that Ruth is coming?" And Ethel said, "No, Mom, she's coming Friday." But when Friday come, why, I was there. And so it made it so that I was with her all the time up until just before she died. And then I went to her services. But after we come out of the temple, and when Mom and Dad was still living in the house there, I'd get up early in the morning and go out and work with her in the garden. And we just had the bestest visits and conversations with each other. And I told her, I said, "Mom, you'll always be my mother, and I have got to live for you so that I can be with you all when my time is here." And she said, "Well, Ruth, I love you too." And she said, "I know you made the right decision." She said, "At the time it hurt, but she said, I know that Lizzie would want you to be her daughter. And if it was my daughter, and she had that decision to make," she said, "I'd want her to make that same decision you made." And then I knew that after Annie had told me that was Mom, that I had made the right choice also. And then after Cleo passed away, Daryl made a promise to me that whenever I needed any help, he would always be here to help me, which he was. And then Daryl was called to his heavenly home in February of 1979. And it just seemed like that, but before that he would always stop in at any hours in the morning and say, "Hey, Mom, I love you. Need any help?" And I said, "At 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't need any help. That's a stupid time to stop in to ask me if I need any help. Stop in when I'm up." And he said, "Well, aren't you going to get up now?" And I said, "Not at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm not." But he was a sweetheart. He was good to me. And one day we were in the Provo Temple with App and Annie, and escalators just frightened me. I've always been afraid of escalators. And I said, "I don't think I want to ride on that escalator." But the blessed elevator wasn't working. So I thought, "Oh, gee, now what am I going to do?" And App and Annie says, "Oh, come on." Annie said they'd help me. And Annie took my arm, and App says, "I'll go behind you." And all of a sudden, I heard this voice of Daryl that says, "Come on, Mom, you can do it, step." And I said to Annie, "Step." She said, "What?" And I said, "Step." So we stepped, and I got up on there. I rode up just fine, and I turned around to App, and I said, "Gee, thanks for helping me, sweetheart." She said, "Ruth, I couldn't touch you. Somebody was between you and I." And I said, "You're kidding." And she said, "Well, no." She said, "There's somebody between you and I." She said, "I reached out, but I couldn't touch you. There was somebody between you and I." And I said, "That was Daryl." Then I told him about it. Of course, we had a little good cry. And When Debbie and Craig went to the temple, Darrell told Debbie, he says, when you and Craig decide to go to the temple, I'll be there. I'll come down to the temple and see that when you go through it. Because when Darrell and Becky got married the first time around, they were married in the State Center, and then they went to the temple a year later. And so, anyway, we went to the temple, and where they took out their endowments. And when we were in there and they were talking to us, why, the brethren in there, one of them said, the one that was officiating, he said, brothers and sisters, there's somebody from the other side, on the other side of the veil that's in this room. He said, in fact, there's 3 presents here, but I can't see them, but somebody in this room can. And I looked up, and there was Virgil, Cleo, and Darrell, and that car standing in the corner. And he looked up, Mother looked at me, and he said, sister, you can see them, can't you? And I just kind of nodded my head. And Jody looked at me, and she said, and Ruth, Darrell's here. And I just kind of squoze her hand. But they were there. They were there in the temple. He'd made the promise to Debbie, and she took out her endowments, and so we knew that that was a special thing for that to happen. Now, like I told you kids, I'm skip hopping around. In 1938, Theron was put in the bishopric of the 27th College Ward. Kay and the family came from Utah, Max and Joyce and family, and Lois and Mark and family. Jim and Shannon Youngstrom were there, and myself. We went up to the college ward, but Theron was sustained, and Bishop Charles Hines was his bishop at that time. And up there, and president, they had the state president called now last name was Grant. He was quite a large man, and they called him, his nickname was Tiny. And but he's the one that set Theron apart. And when he set him apart, he gave him a beautiful blessing, and he told Theron to be sure to honor his mother, for she was a special lady. And he told Theron that that he knew that he would do that, and he would serve his calling well. And then later, I walked up to him, and I told him, I said, that was a beautiful present, blessing present, Grant. He said that, Sister Cook, I was talking to the Lord, and in the eyes of the Lord, you're a very special lady. I had tears in my eyes, and when they were introducing the people around the room, why, he got there, and President Grant said, and who's a lovely sister sitting on the second row? There looked at me, and he started to cry. And he just couldn't say anything, and finally, my other kid said, that's my mom. My kids have been so very special to me, and we've always been proposed. Then that bishop was released, Charles Hines was released, and Theron was again set apart under Bishop Key. And Cindy came over and picked me up, and we went up again with their family. And Theron introduced us to the congregation this time. And finally he said, that's my mother up there, or that's my mom. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today. And I thought that was a real special thing to tell my kids to say about me. It made me feel good. I sure enjoy watching my grandkids do the work they do in their various sports and school. And then basketball and track, and volleyball and softball. It's been fun to go and be with them, and I got to go to state with the Barretts for a few years to watch Nancy go to state, and Brian and Diana. And that was real special to see them do that.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I'll tell you when I get down here. I'm going to put that on here.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
And then Kay has been in the bishopric as a counselor. He's been in the bishopric as an executive secretary, and then he went back in as a counselor. He was bishop in the college ward, and then he was in the bishopric in the West Jordan, in the ward where he lives in West Jordan State, or in the West Jordan, I don't know what state it's in. That's where he lives in West Jordan. And he said they was having quite a time trying to find a young men's president, because the young man that they had for president was moving, and he said that they were knelt down in prayer in the bishop's office, and he said, I just had the feeling that I should tell the bishop to release me and put me in as young men's president. And he said, I had that feeling every time I'd go home and pray, I'd have that feeling. And he says, I felt like that I should be released. And so he said that they had their prayer, and he told the bishop, and the bishop said, no way, I just got you in here. And he said, no, I think that I better be released. And so they had prayer again, and the bishop released their Kay, and he's now president of the young men's. And just the young kids there just loves him. He's just doing a fantastic job with them. Mark was bishop of the Manan First Ward. Franklin has been executive secretary, a scoutmaster, and he is second, either first or second. Well, he's in the bishopric in the Twin Falls Ward. I'll put it to you like that, as a counselor. There was a scoutmaster in his ward, and he had quite a few Eagle Eagle Scouts from his ward. And then Mark, when he was released from the bishop, he was put in as scoutmaster, and then this year he's been put in as a high councilman in our state. Max has been in the bishopric in their wards. He's been over the young men's in other wards. Each one of them has had callings. Lois has been state primary president. She worked in the young ladies' state presidency. Cindy's had callings in the state. Joyce they've all had callings in their wards and in the states. And has my daughter-in-law's the same way. So we do have a good united family, and we're happy about it. Sometimes I think they get kind of aggravated at me, but they still love me. They say they do, so I hope they do.